Alright guys, as promised, here's the XTS CPS video. Sorry a little late here. Before we just want to start, I just want to say that I'm not, this is a hobby of mine. Me showing everybody how to do this, I don't assume any liability or responsibility for people's actions when they program this software. Basically what that means is if you work for a fire department or you work for a commercial company that uses these radios, or your DPS or your city public works, or you're doing this for a company of some sort, do not watch this video, because I myself am not a certified Motorola technician, nor am I certified to work on their equipment. I'm not a dealer, I'm not a technician, I'm just some guy on the internet that enjoys playing around with radios and RF systems. I have experience in Motorola equipment as far as a hobby, mind you, quote unquote, big air quotes there. This is a hobby of mine. This is not my job. I do a completely different thing with RF systems, not relating to Motorola systems. So, for anybody looking to get information, how to program the radio for their job or for their fire department, you need to talk to your Motorola or radio dealer that gave you the radios. Do not watch this video, because I don't want to put anybody in a bad place where they do something wrong, don't know how to program a radio right, or something like that. So just again, I don't take any responsibility for broken radios or if somebody's trying to program this for their department. So let's get started. Alright, so first of all, good day to anybody watching the video. Appreciate the comments in the last video. I got some good comments regarding the XTS radios, and today I'm going to be getting into the basics of the CPS software for the XTS 3000. I'm not going to be going into trunking, but I am going to be going into conventional analog, MDC signaling, P25, digital or Astro, multi-mode system, or dual mode system, possibly SecureNet if you have the chip for that, and phone, DTMF, stuff like that. So depending on how long the video gets, this one's going to be kind of lengthy, so if y'all are really interested in the CPS, get ready to watch this, but I'm going to try to do as much as I can to provide information regarding programming the XTS 3000 radios. So just to recap here on the last video I did, here's the XTS 3000. This one is a UHF. Not much to it from my last video. If you guys haven't seen my last video about the XTS radios, stop this video, go back and watch that, because that way it'll bring you up to speed about how these radios, just the overall operation of them. Yeah, today we're going to be doing the CPS software. I don't have screen capture for my old laptop, so I'm just going to be filming it with my camera, so bear with me. I know it's not the best thing, but this laptop's so old it barely runs Motorola. Anyway, so obviously you're going to need a Motorola radio. Doesn't really matter what flash or firmware you have. The flash code is irrelevant to programming generally. Let's see here. This one has been flashed, but they removed the sticker that tells you what flash version it is. So, interesting enough, when you see this sticker of "I've been flashed," that's not from the factory. From the factory, it is a black sticker that shows Motorola. This is the icon or sticker that you get that says "I've been flashed," or not "I've been flashed," but the most recent flash code. Come on, there we go. So it says flash port manufacturer code, and then it gives you the digits. And that's pretty much what you get from the manufacturer. But when you send it out to a third-party company, like a radio company or some other people that do radio flashes, you will see the sticker on it, and it says, "I've been flashed." That basically means that they updated the flash code. So the original flash code that came from Motorola, it has been updated to a newer standard or a newer version, and the probability of it having more bells and whistles on it is a lot greater, because usually when they reflash it, it's to upgrade certain characteristics of the firmware. Alright, so let's get to it. So what you're going to need for programming these radios is you're going to need an old dinosaur laptop or desktop, doesn't matter. The key with the computer is it has to be running Windows XP. If it's not running Windows XP, it's not going to work. The program will boot up, but it will not recognize the radio at all. I don't know what that is caused by, but it's just the way it's been for a while. Preferably, if you get a computer that has a serial port on it already, then you're pretty much in the ballpark of where you need to be. So, serial port is nice to have. If you don't have a serial port, it's not a big deal. You can buy these on Amazon for like $10, and it's a USB to serial port adapter, so it's the same port as the one that you need. As far as programming cables, we have this guy right here. I went over this in the last video. This is a serial to XTS 3000 radio adapter. I believe this will also work for the XTS 5000 and 2500. Do I have proof that that works like that? No, but I'm pretty sure it does because the pinout is the same. Notice there's no rib box in the cord, and I said that in the last video. There's no need for a rib box. Just go buy the serial to radio adapter directly. So we're going to turn the laptop on here. This laptop is so old the battery doesn't actually work, so it has to be plugged in at all times. The only thing I use this for is programming Motorola radios. It does not get used for browsing the internet because it is ridiculously slow. Alright, so when you get the computer all booted up and ready to go, gonna take the serial port and go ahead and plug that back into the back of the computer. Then you're gonna place the radio side of things here. You're going to plug in the adapter to the radio, like so. That's what it's gonna look like once you have it connected. You're gonna turn the radio on. The radio will boot up just normal. It's gonna lock, that's not a big deal. Don't need to unlock it. Alright, okay, up here we have the Astro Saber XTS 3000 software. Then we have the Astro Radio Tuner. The Astro Saber CPS software is what we're going to use, which is right here. That's what we're going to use to program the radio. This right here is to actually tune it to get it back in transmitting band that it needs to be in. I know how to use it. I've used it before on one of my 800s. Probably not going to make a video about it because there's not too much need for that on these radios from what I've seen. So I guess that's a common thing. If you guys want to see that done, then leave it in the comments. You need some pretty specialized equipment for that. So anyways, we're going to open up Astro Saber 3000. Let's get this prompt here. So this will do the Astro Saber, the XTS 3000, and then it will also do a mobile radio. So I'm just going to start using. Okay, so now we're at a blank screen. We're waiting for this pop-up. Gonna go ahead and click close because it's irrelevant. So we're at a blank screen right now, and there's not much we can do here. So in order to read the radio, we're going to click on this little icon right here. This icon is going to put the radio into a programming mode called 1CSQ, and the computer is going to read all the data from that button and go into pull its code plug which shows all of its information. So right now, as you can see, turn the light on. It says on the screen radio locked. Sorry about the darkness, but it does say radio locked. The second I click onto read config or read radio, it will go into 1CSQ. It beeps and it is in 1CSQ. So do not disconnect this when this is transmitting to the computer. And you also want to have a really good battery that has been charged recently when you're doing this. Okay, so that basically means that the computer sees the radio and it's reading the code plug. It's creating database down here. It's getting all the information out of the radio. Okay, so this is all the information regarding the radio. So, a couple of things we have in here. Well, there's actually a lot of things in here, but I'm trying to make this as simple as I can. So our first tab is the radio information tab. This is a tab that basically tells you general information on the radio. This is mainly read only. So we have the model number and we have the serial number of the radio. And then we also have an option for tracking here. And this is where you would input the date, time. It tells you what software programmed the radio. Tells you what code plug it's currently being used with, the firmware on the radio, the DSP software, I'm not too sure what that is, most recent flash code, and the system package, and external code plug size in bytes, so 6,714 bytes of information that this computer has read from the radio. So that's all you can do with the first tab. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom left under close. Going to go to radio configuration. This is a really important tab. So under radio configuration we have radio wide. Radio wide is pretty much your gain options, TOT timers, which is timeout timers, tones, emergency systems. Right here, you can dictate what the radio is going to do when you hit an emergency button or an E-tone button. Normally, for a firefighter or officer, the emergency button is this orange button here. But this orange button can be programmed to do anything I want it to do, and we'll go into that here in a sec. So, depending on the department, they have different things. We have surveillance mode. Never going to need to use this, but what this does is, let's say I am a surveillance guy or I am investigating a case and I need to be very discreet. I can disable lights on the radio, which means that when I touch the keypad, the lights will not turn on. I can disable tones. What that means is when I click a tone or I click a button, you hear that tone, it will turn that off. And then disable internal speaker audio is another thing that you would have off. And what that does is it disables the general speaker on the front of the radio, and it will only output audio through a microphone or a headset. So if you're doing investigations or you're I don't know, investigator or something, this is what you'd want to use. This would keep you very quiet. You're right, it would not make any noises. Right now it makes all sorts of beeping noises because it sounds cool. Home mode. This has to do with, I believe this is more for a trunking thing. But this is also, so if I click home mode, it will automatically give me option to select which zone and channel that this will resort to when I turn it on. So when I turn this thing on or I click home, which is this home key right here, when I click this home key, you're basically, this tells the radio what the radio is going to do when you click home. So like right now, if I clicked home on the radio, it's going to take me back to zone 1, channel 1. And we will do channels here in a second.
Alright, so here's my audio gain options. I've never had to use this. It's just not needed for me, for what I do with it. We have SecureNet, which is the secure talk. It does have the chip installed, and then it's got digital, all that good stuff. You can configure different gain levels that you need to have. Here's digital audio. So this is also something that you would need for tones, or not tones, but this is like a reception indicator, honestly. What it does is on your outbound signal, you have to be talking to a trunking site for this to happen. But on your outbound indicator, strong interference and weak signal fringe will give you a notification on the radio screen that tell you, hey, you're not transmitting with a good coverage to the trunking network, or vice versa, or you're having a strong interference from some object around you, or some device around you is causing interference. So that is what you would use if you were on a trunking system. And that's really all we got for this. Emergency is when you click that button on the top that I showed you. It's going to I have it to keep the radio alive, which means it's not going to let me turn it off until I clear the emergency. Channel delay, man down pre-alert in seconds, which basically means after 10 seconds it's going to transmit a signal that would be equivalent to a man down tone that you could set if you wanted to. I don't have that set. And then we also have a post alert that would go off after your initial emergency alert. So next thing we have is the controls. And controls is pretty important also. So on top here we have buttons. So here's all trunking. These are all unprogrammed because I'm not trunking. So here is where we actually decide what buttons are going to be used for what. So on conventional, which is what I'm doing, the top button, which is the orange button on the radio, which is right here. I'm going to take off the antenna so I can try to get easier view here. So the orange button is the top button, so that's my set to emergency. Now, check this out. Let's say I don't want that to be my emergency button. I want that to do something else. I have all these options to set that option. So I can set this to phone, and what that does now is if I click right to radio, when I click that orange button, instead of activating an emergency tone, it's going to activate my phone patch on the radio. So I keep mine on emergency, but you have tons of different things here. So we have light. Light just turns on the backlight on the radio. Monitor monitors frequencies. Obviously, talk around direct is direct, which means non-repeater. Emergency mode. Phone, like I said, dials a phone number or opens it up for auto patch. Unprogrammed, which doesn't do anything. Select call, which basically answers a call when you get a call on a trunking network. And there's just tons and tons of options here. So I'm not going to go into all of these, but that's just generally what they do. I'm going to change this back to emergency. Okay, so then we have side buttons. The side buttons, you'll see upper, middle, and bottom. On the radio here, we have upper, middle, bottom. So that's pretty simple to explain. So basically what I have right now is when I click number 1, so let's turn the radio on and let's go through these. Once you read the code plug on the computer, you don't have to have the radio connected to the computer. My upper button is monitor. What that means is when I click my upper button here and hold it down, the radio will pretty much openly monitor analog. So yeah, that button here, this is set to monitor, which it's going to bypass the squelch and you're just going to hear white noise. My second light here, or my second button, turns on my light. So right now I have no light. Hit the second button, my light turns on and off. The third button, which is the bottom, is set to do direct and talk around. So when I click on, let's see here.
Semi-familiar with the terrain.
Here we got a guy here, got guys on here. So when I click on 3, or my third bottom button, see a little icon that opens up, and it basically, it's really hard to see on this camera, darn it. This little line with an arrow means that when I transmit, it's going to go to direct mode, and it's not going to go through the repeater. So whatever your receive frequency on the repeater is, it will transmit only on the receive frequency, and it will not do your offset when you have direct on. So basically, this is simplex. When you click this button here, the way I have it set, you're turning simplex option on and off. So that's all the buttons. They're not that difficult. And like I said, each button on this system on the radio can be programmed for different options. That's just what I have mine for. So close that out. Radio handheld. This is for an actual handheld microphone on the radio. I don't have one. I have one in the truck, but that's for a whole different setup. So that doesn't really pertain to the XTS 3000s. Switches are your switches on the radio. So you have switch label, position A and position B. What this is right here on switch label, this guy right here. This is your 2-position concentric switch. So this camera is just terrible for focusing. I don't know what the heck's going on. Anyway, there's a better view of it. So you can see here what I'm moving. You have a thing here that's looks like an O, and then on this side you have an O with a cross on through it. That's for secure net mainly, is what Motorola prefers it is used for. But I'm just using it to lock out my radio. So when I have this set to my left position, the number pad is completely locked down here, and I can't press any of the buttons, which is really nice because when I'm running around with it on me and I hit something, it doesn't change a setting, and it won't change. So that's what that is for, and you can change that to do multiple different things. Like I said, I have keypad lock right now, but you got zone select, scan, unprogrammed, blank, PL disable, change to low transmit power, scan list, mute, secure TX, which is what it was originally on. 3-position toggle. This is, you see here, 3-position toggle A, B, and C. So we have 3 little positions here on the radio. We have A, B, and C. And we have a toggle switch that will actually click into 3 different positions. So here's 1 in A, 2 in B, 3 in C. And once again, fully programmable. We can change what every little button does on this. So we can change, like right now I just have my position A to scan the zone. Position B is blank. Position C is TX low power. And that's what I've set everything to. Trunking, not doing trunking, but it's the same theory. You can program any of these in for trunking. Close that out. All right, I'm gonna try to fast forward through a lot of this because I will leave this to questions and comments. If anybody wants to see more of these settings and how they operate, just go ahead and throw it in the comments. But mainly what we're here to go over is conventional repeater input. So this is pretty simple. Don't get overwhelmed by it. There's really not much to it. And there's 2 different options for people who like different methods of programming. So if we double click on conventional personality. So a conventional personality is an actual physical channel. It is not a zone. A zone and a channel are 2 different things. A personality is a repeater pair. So for example, my repeater here at the house is 440.625. My transmit to the repeater is 445.625, and my PL is 103.5. So that would be a personality. The personality holds, let's go to information here. So here, when I click on a personality that I have set, you can see that I have my frequency in megahertz to receive on, and I have my transmit frequency that will be transmitting to the repeater, and that usually is the one with the offset. So when you are programming these, once again, a personality is a channel or a frequency pair, and a zone is the group of which those pairs or those personalities are being stored in. And we will get into zones here in a second. So we're going to go through the two different ways of going through the channels. First mode we have is basically tabs. I don't use this often. I prefer the chart. It's kind of like an Excel doc almost. But if you prefer this is pretty simple. So let's go ahead and I'm going to program a repeater frequency that is pretty local to where I am. We're going to go ahead and program this for basically we're going to reprogram this personality, and I'll show you how to do it from scratch. So close this. So here's all my personalities, right? So I usually like to click on the last one, it doesn't matter. So down here on the bottom, yep, right here on the bottom, you will see this little add button. This little green cross adds personalities to the radio. So if I click this, it's automatically going to add a channel. Defaultly, the channel is always set on this radio for 136075 and 136025. However, that's not what we're needing to program into the radio. So my receive frequency on this repeater is going to be 145.130. Okay. And let me see what my transmit frequency was. 144.530. Okay. Alright, so my transmit frequency is 530. So there we go. I just typed in the repeater pair. So the radio is going to receive on 145.130, and then the radio is going to transmit to the repeater on 144.530. Now, squelch type, we're going to go down here to PL, because that's what this repeater takes. And the PL, I believe, is 131. Oh, we got a 131.8, I believe, is the PL. So PLs also have, they're known as PL code, so these and these are dependent of each other. So whatever you type in for this will change this, and if you type something in for this, it will change that. I don't know what the PL code definitions are, but all I know is the PL frequencies. So we're pretty much done programming this repeater, but we are missing one major thing here. So, you know, we programmed the radio to operate on this repeater. However, if I was to program the radio right now and send all this data to the radio, it would not find this. The reason being is we have not assigned this to a zone. So right now this is kind of like it's in the radio, but it's not accessible to the user just yet. So to assign this to a zone, we have to remember this number down here. So this is personality 63. Total personalities in the radio is 63 personalities. So we have to remember that this is personality 63. And you're going to figure out why here in a sec. Now, on the conventional channels, we cannot program the name of this personality just yet. That will be done when we get into the zones. So we're going to go over to the zones here real quick. So on the bottom, underneath personalities, you see message alias, status alias, MDC, scan, zone, channel assignment. That's what we want. So here I have all my zones. So we're going to go ahead and just click the bottom one. And we're going to add a new zone. So this one, I'm just going to call it TST for test. or video. Let's call it VID for video. So here's video. All right, close. Or actually, don't close it yet. So we named the zone. We'll go over how you see zones in the radio. Now we're going to go up to channels. So as you can see, there are no channels yet assigned to this zone that we have just created. So our personality type is conventional. Once again, we have conventional and trunking. We want to stay with conventional. Personality, remember that number 63? That's what we need to remember. So what this does, when this personality number refers to all personalities in the radio. So we're going to go down. We're going to go down to personality 63, which is what we were using. So click on personality 63. Now we have told the radio in this zone we want to use channel or personality 63, which is that repeater we just programmed in. Now we can also change the channel name. So instead of channel 1, I'm going to type, if my camera wants to stay focused here, no, it didn't like that. I typed in too much stuff. Let's just do test VHF. Okay. So now I have set this test VHF is the channel name. The personality type is conventional. We are not doing trunking. Personality number is 63, which is the channel we just programmed in the personalities. Okay. So now, we're going to close all that out. Basically, we just programmed a brand new zone with a channel. So if I go to my radio, same thing. I'm going to turn the radio on. The radio's already plugged into the programming wire. So radio's on, it says radio locked. Now we're going to go back over here. We're going to go to, so this was our read button. This is our write button. So we're going to go ahead and click on write. The radio beeped, recognizing it's taking data. And it will also say 1 CSQ here. Once the radio is done, it will actually give you a notification on the screen. So right now it says, verifying that the device can accept the current code plug. Using port COM1. The radio has completed. Astro Saber XTS 3000 CPS. Write successful. So now, the radio has turned on. The radio is on and operating. We're going to go ahead and lock it here right quick. So, remember, we just named a zone called video, or vid. So zone, I have here, zone is my bottom left button. So I'm going to click zone. When I click zone, you'll notice that over here these 3 letters are flashing. These are my zones. So this one's BIN, this is TX, this is another TX, this is STA, this is STF, this is KSA, and this is, now here's the one we just programmed, look at that. VID, which is the zone that we programmed. The channel name was test VHF. And you can see that now. So once again, here's our video, test VHF. If I transmit, put my antenna on. So this is actually a ham radio repeater near me. And we are locked on. If these guys weren't talking, then I could probably key it up from where I am. So that is how to program a conventional analog. We're going to go over digital real quick, which is P25 Astro, which is one of my favorites. Alright, so now that we know the write successful, let's program the same channel of 145.130 on the same zone, but for Astro, which is P25. Okay, so we want to do P25 for the same channel. But we're going to do it a little differently this time. This is the other method that you can program this radio, which is neat. So we're going to go back down to personality 63. Here is our analog personality that we just programmed. And now, instead of going through this tab section, we're going to open up the chart view. The chart view is what I use to program frequencies. It's just a lot easier to see things. Takes a while because I have 63 channels. So here, it shows all of my personalities designated by a column ID or personality ID. And then it also shows my receive frequencies programmed in for each section. So if I go down here, we will see at the bottom that 145.130 frequency that I just programmed, which is, again, channel 63. So we're going to add 145.130, but we're going to add this in P25. So I'm going to click the button down here again, which is the green cross looking button, and it is going to add another channel. And again, the channel defaulted to 136.075. That's just what the radio does. So on the receive frequency, which is right here, that's their column tabs are up here. So we have receive only personality, which you only highlight receive personality if you're doing scanning. So I got receive personality, receive frequency, receive squelch, PL, all that. And there's tons and tons of tabs. We'll go through the basic ones here. So same thing, we're going to program 145.130. All right. We are fine with CSQ on receive. That doesn't really apply to what we're doing right now. Go over to the right a little bit more. Here's our transmit frequency. To the repeater, our transmit frequency needs to be 144.530. Now, if we were doing analog, we would need to change this to PL. But we are not going to be doing analog. We're going to be doing digital, so I'm going to keep that disabled. Okay? And as you can see, all these are grayed out because they don't apply to the conventional channel that we are working on. Okay, so here is the pretty much guts of where we're going to program in P25. Non-Astro. So non-Astro means analog. That's what that means. We have three modes. We have non-Astro, mixed mode, and Astro mode. Astro mode is our P25. Mixed mode is basically duplex between both modes. So it will receive an analog and it will receive in P25. And it will recognize what it needs to transmit to the repeater too. I don't know how it does that, but that was one of the things in the user manual that the radio was capable of doing. So we're doing Astro on this mode. It's going to take a second to change everything to Astro. Now we are in Astro. So now when I transmit on that frequency, it's going to transmit on P25. So we're going to go up here now, and we're going to keep going over, scrolling over. So here we have our squelch fine tune. I normally keep these at 2. So I'm going to change them all to 2 here. The lower the squelch, the better the coverage in some cases. Defaultly, these are at a 6 because that is what the radio is defaulting to. So Astro, okay. We got our PL, or our squelch is now at 2. Gonna go over here. Here is our timeout timers. So our timeout timer is identified by numbers or seconds. So right now a 3 is 60 seconds, and so both channels we have at 3. So for those of us that like to rag chew, you probably want 120. So that would be 4. 4 and 4. So that gives us 120 seconds of transmit time on the radio. All this right here is just deviations, and that is useful for ham radio, obviously, when you are transmitting ham radio. So actually we should have set this 5's probably our best bet, because that's as close to we're gonna get. Once again, we got TX voice signal is Astro, which is P25. All this is automatically highlighted when you select P25. Here's where we program our direct talk around frequency. So our talk around frequency on that channel 63 that we programmed earlier is 145.130, and we have to change that here in a sec, but I'm going to keep going down the line. So we have a lot of options here. There is something I do want to show everybody that's very, very useful when you are using a Motorola radio. See if I can find it. This is probably one of my favorite options on the XTS 3000s. Here's our phone operation. So we can basically determine if the phone is going to get used on that channel. Okay, here's what I was looking for. So here we have Smart PTT type. This is always used on all of my repeaters. Here's why. So down here on 63, which is what we just programmed, you'll see it says disabled. I always set this to inhibit on carrier. What that means is, let's say I have my radio, I'm on an amateur repeater in my area, and I am wanting to talk on that repeater, but there is somebody on that repeater talking. So this basically prevents doubling. When the radio detects a carrier, or when it's inhibited on a carrier, it will not allow you to transmit unless you are in emergency mode. So let me open up my thing here. If these guys are still talking, I will go over to that channel and show you what that works like.
It's generally on digital. Otherwise, I've got a PL 114.8.
Alright, so here's a repeater here. If I transmit on this repeater, these guys are talking. See how the radio beeps, but it doesn't let me transmit? See that? That is what inhibit on carrier does. So no matter how many times I hit that, it's not going to let me transmit because the repeater is already being used. Now if I go to a repeater here, so like this was the one we were just on, and now I can transmit. That's how it works. So if someone came back to me on this repeater, I couldn't keep. When you have this inhibit on carrier enabled, you will not double with anybody. It's physically impossible. I love that about Motorola's. It's probably one of my favorite features, and it's just an amazing system that a lot of radios should have. So that's what inhibit on carrier does. I would urge many people to use that. Anyways, so I'm going to add that to my P25 as well.
So next on the list here, we're going to look at the NAC codes. If you're going to be using any particular personality or channel using P25 or Astro, you're going to need a NAC code. NAC stands for Network Access Code, Network Authorization Code, Transmit Network ID, Receive Network ID. There's many different names for it. But basically NAC is like a PL tone to an analog repeater. We're just using it for P25. That's just how they code their repeaters. So on that channel that we have down here for 64, you can see the NAC is defaultly set at 293. We're going to say that this repeater that we're programming, once again, this repeater doesn't exist, but just for the sake of the video, we're going to say that this is 523. So you're going to need to put in 523 for all of these, not just one. And when you put in 523 on the receive network up here, it will automatically adjust that one based upon what your receive is. So NAC is extremely important when we want to talk or listen in on a P25 repeater. If you do not have the correct NAC in any of these portions, then you're pretty much not going to hear anything. There is a way to open up the receive, but if you don't have transmit enabled, you're not going to hear the repeater at all. So that is what NAC is. And for P25 channels, that's pretty much all we need to do. We gotta reset the receive because I didn't put that in right. Okay. Alright, so like an analog repeater, we still have our 145.130 on receive, and we still have our 144.530 on transmit, which is our offset. On Motorola's, you don't need to tell the Motorola what the offset is going to be. You just need to tell it what the two different frequencies are, and it will do the calculation based on that. So once again, just kind of summarizing everything here. Receive signal, receive type is Astro, non-Astro is analog. All of our squelch is at 2, which is fine. Timeout timer's 120, we're good there. So another thing, if you are using these radios from Motorola, there are repeaters out there where this will tick off the amateur radio guys out there. I don't mind it. I like the way it sounds. Some people really don't like it. I like it, so it is what it is. But basically what this does is this gives that little cop sounding burst at the end or beginning of a transmission. That's what our PTT ID is. So when I press this, the radio is going to make that weird, it sounds like it's basically a data burst. And I can't really show you what it sounds like because I don't have a way to relay it, but it's like the movies where they make that sound and then they transmit whatever they're gonna say. A lot of guys on amateur bands prefer you have this off because they think it's annoying. I usually talk with it on because in the event that the repeater is set up for analog or it's a Quantar, it will actually recognize my radio via that data burst. So if you want to use that, once again, use it at your own demise there if something happens. You're going to want to highlight push to talk ID. I just have emergency on for my emergency system. And then guess you can go ahead and let's see what I did up here. Okay, so you don't need to do those two rows. You just need to do, if you want to use the MDC tone or the MDC ID, you just want to have these two enabled and not even this one. This one's just for emergency. So this one over here under PTT ID is what you want to put. So really that's it as far as programming a simple P25 frequency in there. I'm not going to go into detail on encryptions on it or anything like that. Here's phone operation. We went over that. That's about it. So that's how you do the digital stuff. Now, let's say you don't like this layout here where it has all the little tiles. That's fine because we can go to a different setting. So we were just on 64 on our columns, but if I want to program channel 64 with the tabs, just double click on it.
it will automatically bring me into the tab page. And it's the same thing on here. Here's my frequency for receive, frequency for transmit. All this is grayed out. My PL's grayed out because we are on digital. You get to digital by Astro up here. When you click Astro, you will see here that network ID has been set. Digital modulator type is set for C4FM, and we have normal squelch for the radio. Do not be fooled. C4FM does not mean Yaesu Fusion. It is a very similar codec. P25 is actually the father to Fusion Radio. Fusion Radio used to be, Yaesu used to actually be a company of a part of Motorola, and then they branched off to do their own thing, and they kind of hijacked the code and then did their own thing with it. So even though it says C4FM, it's P25. It's not Yaesu Fusion. It's not going to work on Yaesu repeaters. And then here's our MDC that I was telling you about earlier. There's the signaling. So here's Secure 2. This is the SecureNet system. As a ham radio operator, you're never going to have a use for this. In fact, running an encryption on amateur bands is illegal. And you just should never do it. There's really no reason to do it. If you need to tell somebody a secret, just call them on the phone. Smart push-to-talk type. That's the inhibit on carrier that I mentioned earlier. So all of these right here are in the same as the columns. I just like the columns better because it's laid out easier and I can work with it just a little bit better and keep track of all my systems. So there, I'm back in all the columns. And I do that just by right here. So if I click on the folder, it's going to go to tab view. And then if I click on column, it'll go back into column. All right, so they're working down the list here. We already went over zones. Now if I want to use the P25, once again, I need to remember 64 is my channel. So I'm going to go down here to zone channel assignment. I'm going to go to channels. I'm going to go to add. Now, so here's the other thing that gets a little crazy. If you click down here on this add button, it will add another zone. We don't want to add a zone. We want to add a channel. So up here is where we actually add the channel. So if you click this little green cross, you will add a channel. But if you click the green cross down here, you will add a zone. We don't need to add a zone. We already have the zone here. So we're going to click add channel 2. I'm going to type this in as test VHF. Let's see, test. Let's just do it test P25. P25. And then conventional, we're not doing trunking. Personality type, our personality that we want to use is 64. So there we go. So now, once we have everything set the way we want it to be, we're going to go ahead and write to the radio, like so. The radio will read its data. So, as you can see, 1CSQ, it's downloading the information. We see here, verifying that the device, again, just recognizing the code plug. Now it's uploading using COM port 1. Our radio has been successfully written. Click OK. We're going to go back over to the radio. Now if we go into our zones, going to click zone, and I'm going to keep going over till I see vid is the one we just assigned. So here's our vid test. Channel 1 was, remember, we set that to analog, so we have video test VHF. That's analog. So you'll also note that there is a speaker looking icon or a microphone looking icon at the top of the screen. When you see that, you are in analog. When it disappears, you are in digital. So when I go to my next channel, which is, this is the one we just did for P25. Here's vid test P25. As you'll notice, that little speaker icon disappeared, which means that we are actively in P25. If I transmit, we won't hear anything back because there's nothing to, there's no repeater on P25, but you will see that the red light is transmitting. And that's really all that you need to do as far as conventional programs. These Motorola's, there's tons of different options. It would take hours to go over, and we're already at an hour on this video, which is way longer than I wanted to do, so I might split this up into 2 different videos. I don't know yet. I guess we can go through how to scan, because that's kind of a good thing to do. Alright, so let's do that real quick. So scanning, what we're gonna do is, let's say we want to go back into our zone that we just made, which was VID, is the zone name. We have channel 63, channel 64. We want to scan these channels. So on my tab menu, and once again, this is also the same thing in the other menu of the columns. I'm going to go over to my scan here. So you'll see here, it says under scan list selection. Scan list selection is under none currently. If I drop down, I have 7 lists to choose from. But these are all for different other channels, so we're going to actually have to go back and make a new scan list. So under trunking, we see this icon here, it says scan. So we're going to click extend that, and now we want to go to scan list. So here is all of our scan lists. This is very similar to how zone works. So we're going to click on zone number 7. We're going to click on list. I'm sorry. Go to my tab page. So here's all my different zones for all my different scanning programs. Each scan, or each channel, or each scan ID here is for a different zone. So since we just made a new zone, we're going to have to make a new scan. So I'm going to hit the green button here at the bottom to add a new scan section. And that's really all we need to do on this page. So I'm going to hit close. Now we see scan list 8. So we're going to open up scan list 8. We're going to go to list. Now these are all the channels that we can allocate to this new scan zone. So I'm going to put the 2 we just did. So we are in our earliest zone, which we just made zone 10. So zone 10. And as you can see, it's giving me an unassigned error because we haven't assigned the channel. Channel 1 on zone 10, and then channel 2 on zone 10. And then right there is where we confirm that we have the right channels we're going to scan. So that's done. We're going to close. Still not done yet though. We have to go into our personalities and adjust 2 things. So in our personalities, we're going to hit 63 like we had. Going to go over to scan, and scan list selection, once again, we're at none. Now remember how we only had 7, right? So we only had 7 because there were only 7 scannable zones that were set. We just created another one, so that's why you see the 8 here. So basically, we're telling the radio that this channel will go to zone 8 to get programmed. So we're going to click 8, going to click close, and we're going to go to 63, and we're also going to hit scan, and then we're going to also add that to 8. So that's just 2 extra things you have to do aside from the scan zone. Close. Alright, so now we should be right where we need to be. So now that I added the scanning, let's go ahead and upload the code plug to the radio. Okay. So that's gonna fire off here. Okay, we're done. Click OK. Here's my radio rebooting. Radio's locked. Go ahead and unlock it. Alright, so we are back in the zone 10, which is what we just made. So we have vidtest VHF analog, and we have vidtest P25. So we have added these to a scan list. Now, if I go up here to my button or my toggle switch that I set, remember in my other menu, I set toggle switch A to be zone setting. So if I go to A, you'll now see that it popped up with this Z symbol. The Z tells you that the scan list is active and it is scanning between all of the channels in that list that you told it to scan. So as you can see, we still have Z on P25 and we still have Z on VHF. So if either one of these frequencies pops up with audio, it will go to that frequency. But if, let's say, I'm on channel 1 on this zone, which is VHF, then it will, yeah, let's say I'm on channel VHF and I hear audio or someone talking on the other channel, the radio will go over to the other channel, but when it's done talking, or when it's done hearing the audio, it'll resort back to this channel. It's monitoring both frequencies at once, but it will still only let you talk on test VHF. That's just the way the radio's set up currently. You can change that by default, but I have that the way it is. So like I said, if all of a sudden I'm hearing audio on this channel, which is P25, and then I try to talk to it, when I hit the PTT, it's only going to talk on the channel I was defaultly set on. So that's the only thing about the Motorola's that are kind of iffy, but that can be changed in the menu. So anyway, that's really all that there is to it as far as detail. I don't want to go into too much depth here. Like I said, there's tons and tons of more things you can do. You can write code plugs. You can, write keys. You can upload keys to this program. You can work with a trunking system, all sorts of crazy stuff like that. And then if you have the chip inside of the radio, you will also see under secure here is my multi-key security list. And this is a key that was uploaded to the radio, so it's a hardware key. Anyways, that's about it. Sorry this video was an hour long, but there's a lot of information in it and I wanted to cover as much as I could. If there's any questions regarding more programming things, then go ahead and shoot them off in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to them. I definitely don't want to keep the video an hour long again, but like I said, this is a really big program and I tried to cover as much as I could. So with that being said, hope you all stay safe, and 73s.